In 1607, a dazzling comet lit the sky over Europe. "A comet! A comet!" people cried and pointed to the heavens. In those days, almost everyone could name the bright stars and planets. They knew the constellations and the mythical stories of their forming. Mothers and fathers showed their children the stars named for the dog Sirius, or Draco the dragon, or Cygnus the swan. Pollution and city lights had not yet dimmed the skies, nor was there much else in the evening to capture attention. Few could afford costly candles, so when something out of the ordinary appeared in the night sky, people saw it and wondered at its meaning. These were times when most questions were answered by religious faith or superstition. Modern science was just being born. Stars were thought to be the lights of heaven, and comets were said to be messengers sent to foretell danger and dire change. Many who watched the bold comet were frightened, though they might have been even more fearful had they known this was the very comet that had been seen in 1066, when the Norman kings invaded England from France. Those French conquerors had changed England and the English language for all time. But you didn't need a comet in 1607 to see that Europe was changing. The old religion, Catholic Christianity, had broken apart. England had become Protestant, then Catholic, then Protestant again. Now some people, called Puritans, were saying that the country wasn't Protestant enough. It was all very disturbing to people used to a secure faith. To make matters worse, there were economic problems too. In the great Catholic nation of Spain, the government was bankrupt. Although nobody knew it, Spain's glory days were over. Would that arrogant little Protestant island, that England, become Europe's new leader? Now that England's magnificent Queen Elizabeth was dead, no one knew where England was heading. In this new world that had once seemed orderly, ideas were changing. New thinkers, like the Italian scientist Galileo Galilei, were actually saying that Aristotle, the greatest of scientists, had some ideas that were wrong. Galileo even whispered that Nicholas Copernicus might be right. Copernicus, a Polish astronomer, had said the sun, not the earth, was the center of our universe. How could that be? Everyone knew that the planets and stars and sun all revolved around the earth. If that idea was wrong, then the Pope and all of Europe's rulers were wrong. Of course, that disturbing idea got Galileo into a lot of trouble. It ended up changing everything people believed. Change is troublesome, especially to those in power. And yet the new ideas, like germs, seemed to travel on invisible wings. The epidemic of thought was soon out of control. In 1609, just 2 years after the comet appeared, Galileo built one of the world's first telescopes. It was a lot stronger and therefore more useful than the few made before it. Galileo took much of the mystery from the skies and replaced it with scientific order. When the comet of 1607 came again in 1682, an English scientist named Edmund Halley tracked it and learned that it takes more than 75 years to complete its trip around the sun. Halley predicted that the comet would return in 1758, and he was right. But in 1607, people knew none of that. They didn't know the year 1607 was to become famous. That very year, the seeds of a new nation, a new way of governing, a new way of looking at the world, were being planted on the North American continent by a small group of English men and boys. The message that some people read in the comet was right. The world was in for astonishing changes. Would they be changes for the better? Not for those people called Indians, who would soon meet the pale-skinned English. For them, the changes were tragic. But for England and the rest of the world, 1607 marked the beginning of what turned out to be an awesome, momentous, earth-shaking experiment. An experiment that would lead to democracy and to a government dedicated to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. But for England and the rest of the world, 1607 marked the beginning of what turned out to be an awesome, momentous, earth-shaking experiment. An experiment that would lead to democracy and to a government dedicated to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Let's watch the United States happen. Take yourself to the beginning of the 17th century, to England, where some brave men are getting ready to travel to a place they call the New World. They have no idea what is ahead of them. They'll bring along their old world ideas, good and bad. Pack a bag. We're going to join them.